We are now prepared to destroy, more rapidly and completely, every productive enterprise the Japanese have in any city. A single bomb capable of turning an entire city into a pile of ash in seconds, that was the terrifying promise of the new weapon. Nuclear weapons have the power to obliterate everything in their path with a single explosion. But how far does this power really stretch? How did we end up with weapons capable of ending life as we know it? And who truly holds control over this deadly force? When nuclear hell broke loose, the world was forever changed. Blinding flashes, entire cities reduced to ashes, nothing epitomizes sheer destruction like nuclear weapons. Over 75 years ago, humanity witnessed an unprecedented catastrophe that still echoes in history. We're talking about the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These events didn't just end a war, they ushered in a terrifying new era of warfare that reshaped the future of humanity. Imagine living in a world where one explosion can rewrite history forever. But what exactly led us here, to the creation of these catastrophic weapons? What is the story behind the most powerful and terrifying force ever created by humankind? The real horror began on July 26, 1945, when the Allies issued the Potsdam Declaration, demanding Japan's unconditional surrender. The warning was stark and clear: comply, or face prompt and utter destruction. Japan ignored this grave ultimatum, and in doing so, set the stage for one of the most unprecedented acts of war the world has ever seen. By the summer of 1945, the United States had already made a chilling breakthrough: the development of 2 atomic bombs, codenamed Little Boy and Fat Man. The Manhattan Project, which had been operating in the utmost secrecy, brought together some of the greatest scientific minds of the time, including the famed physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer. These 2 bombs, one uranium-based, and the other plutonium-based, were ready for deployment. On August 6, 1945, the world would witness the terrifying power of the atom for the first time. A B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay, took off from the island of Tinian, carrying Little Boy. The mission was shrouded in secrecy, but the crew knew they were about to make history, and perhaps, change the course of civilization. At precisely 8:15 a.m., Little Boy was dropped over Hiroshima. The explosion was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It unleashed the force of 50 kilotons of TNT, creating a blinding flash of light that lasted only an instant, but left an indelible mark on the survivors. A massive shockwave followed, flattening everything in its path. Buildings turned to rubble, and human beings were vaporized in an instant. The heat from the blast ignited widespread fires that consumed what was left of the city. In mere moments, 70,000 to 80,000 people perished. By the end of the year, the death toll would rise to around 140,000 due to radiation sickness, burns, and injuries. The survivors, known as hibakusha, faced not only the physical scars but also the psychological trauma of living with the memory of that horrific day. Just 3 days later, on August 9, 1945, another B-29 bomber, the Bockscar, set off for its target, the city of Kokura. However, due to poor visibility, the mission was rerouted to Nagasaki. At 11:02 a.m., Fat Man, a more powerful bomb with a yield of 21 kilotons of TNT, was dropped. The destruction was devastating: another fireball erupted in the sky, and a towering mushroom cloud rose above the city. This explosion killed between 40,000 and 75,000 people instantly. By the end of 1945, an estimated 80,000 to 100,000 people had died from radiation sickness and injuries. Unlike Hiroshima, Nagasaki's hilly geography somewhat contained the blast, but the destruction was still catastrophic. Buildings within a 2 kilometers radius were completely destroyed, and fires engulfed large parts of the city. For the survivors, the consequences of radiation were harrowing, with cancer rates and genetic mutations skyrocketing for years to come. The question remains, how did we get here? What led to this catastrophic escalation? The path to Hiroshima and Nagasaki was paved with intense scientific discovery, global conflict, and a race against time. During World War II, the United States initiated the top-secret Manhattan Project, a frantic effort to develop nuclear weapons in case Nazi Germany was also working on an atomic bomb. The project culminated in the Trinity test on July 16, 1945, when the first atomic bomb was successfully detonated in the New Mexico desert, proving that such weapons were no longer just theoretical, they were terrifyingly real. The film Oppenheimer, directed by Christopher Nolan, explores the complex life of J. Robert Oppenheimer, often referred to as the father of the atomic bomb. This cinematic masterpiece delves into Oppenheimer's internal struggles and the moral dilemmas faced by those who participated in the project. As we reflect on the events of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the film takes on even greater significance. It brings to light the tension between scientific progress and the ethical ramifications of creating weapons capable of such devastation. The legacy of these events is a constant reminder of the complexities tied to technological advancement, and the haunting consequences of that progress. But here's where things get murky: was it truly necessary to use such a devastating weapon? Did the bombings save lives by preventing a prolonged conflict, or did they serve as a show of power, marking the beginning of the nuclear age with a terrifying message? President Truman justified the bombings by claiming they were necessary to end the war and avoid a costly invasion of Japan. But the civilian casualties, the lasting health effects, and the moral implications of the attacks have led to ongoing debates. Did the end justify the means? The legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki extends beyond the immediate destruction. These bombings are a chilling reminder of the catastrophic consequences of nuclear warfare, underscoring the urgent need to prevent such weapons from being used again. In both Hiroshima and Nagasaki, survivors have dedicated their lives to advocating for peace and ensuring that future generations understand the horrors of nuclear weapons. Hiroshima's Peace Memorial Park and Museum stand as solemn reminders of the devastation caused by the atomic bomb. The preserved atomic bomb dome, one of the few buildings left standing near the hypocenter of the blast, is a powerful symbol of the destructive potential of nuclear weapons. The ethical questions surrounding the bombings still provoke debate to this day. Were the bombings a necessary evil, or were they an overreach of military power? And what role did the Soviet Union play in influencing the decision? These questions add layers of complexity to the already tragic narrative. The bombings have become a symbol of the moral dilemmas posed by nuclear weapons and the profound consequences of their use. In the years that followed, the world entered the nuclear age, with the proliferation of increasingly powerful nuclear weapons. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union amassed thousands of nuclear warheads, each more powerful than the last. The fear of mutual destruction influenced not only military strategy but also global politics, culture, and society. Duck and cover drills became routine in schools, and nuclear fear permeated the daily lives of people around the world. The psychological impact was profound. Fast forward to today, and the legacy of those early nuclear bombs has evolved into even more powerful and precise weapons. Take, for example, the B-83 bomb, the most powerful nuclear weapon currently in the US arsenal. With a maximum yield of 1.2 megatons of TNT, the B-83 is 80 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. This kind of power could obliterate entire cities in seconds. But it's not just about raw destruction. The B-83 also has enhanced safety features designed to prevent accidental detonation. It even has the potential for precision strikes against deeply buried targets, such as underground bunkers, a concept that could be used for asteroid impact avoidance, in case humanity ever faces an existential threat from space. Despite its potential for global destruction, the B-83 is a controversial weapon. Critics argue that weapons like the B-83 fuel the arms race, making the world more dangerous by increasing the risk of nuclear conflict. But supporters view it as a necessary tool for national security, a powerful deterrent against potential adversaries. The B-83 embodies the paradox of nuclear weapons. They are designed to prevent war through the sheer threat of annihilation, yet they carry the very real risk of our ultimate destruction. Looking back at the Cold War, a key moment in the nuclear arms race was the Castle Bravo test, which took place on March 1, 1954. The US detonated the most powerful nuclear device it had ever tested, a bomb with a staggering 15 megaton yield. Originally meant to showcase American nuclear might, the test quickly became a disaster, releasing radioactive fallout over thousands of miles and contaminating local inhabitants and US servicemen. This catastrophic miscalculation highlighted the uncontrollable nature of nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union wasn't far behind in its nuclear testing. On October 30, 1961, the Soviet Union detonated the Tsar Bomba, the most powerful nuclear bomb ever detonated, with a yield of 50 megatons of TNT. The sheer scale of the explosion was terrifying, with the fireball reaching 5 miles wide and the blast wave circling the globe multiple times. It was a show of force, a declaration of nuclear dominance that echoed through the Cold War. These tests and the terrifying weapons that followed have shaped global politics and security ever since. The doctrine of mutual assured destruction, MAD, a terrifying balance of terror that prevented direct conflict between superpowers, defined the Cold War. In this delicate dance, both sides built nuclear arsenals capable of destroying each other, leading to a terrifying stalemate where peace was maintained through the threat of total annihilation. But the existence of these weapons, and the potential for escalation, didn't stop with the superpowers. The nuclear club grew, with nations like the United Kingdom, France, China, India, and Pakistan joining the ranks of nuclear powers. Each new member added to the complexity of an already volatile global landscape. Today, the question remains, can we ever truly control such powerful forces? Is the threat of annihilation the price we must pay for national security, or are we simply playing a dangerous game with our own survival? The nuclear age is a complex, terrifying, and ever-evolving reality. As long as these weapons exist, so too does the debate about their role in shaping our future, and whether the very things designed to protect us could one day destroy us all. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found this deep dive into the nuclear age compelling,